Well, welcome to the Self Care You podcast. I'm your host, Sharon, the number one self caregiver in the world. This podcast is the intersection of self care, advocacy, and compassion for self caregivers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so, with this episode, what I really want to talk about is, do you have what it takes to meet the standard of being healthy and wealthy? And I was like, are you standard? And then the thing is that when I was thinking about this topic, I'm like, wow, there's two ways of looking at this because, we're talking about, you know, being mediocre, and it's like, like no one doesn't want to be below. And are you the same as everybody? And so it's like, are you the standard? Again, there's two ways looking at that. Are you just standard, meaning like a role model where someone can look up to you and say, oh, yeah, they went all the way out? Or are you the standard just doing everything that everyone else is doing? And so that's the question to ask yourself is, what standard are you? Now, are you the standard? That's what it is. Are you a standard, which is you're alone with everyone else, or are you the standard that you go above and beyond of what it takes to be successful? And again, success is not just about the external things, it's about your character of who you are and the things that you do. Are you the standard? And in being the standard, are you living up to the standard to be where you want to be? And so, in saying that, you may have heard me talk about this lately because I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and they are, I'll put it like this, they are like I guess you say there's a second David Goggin. We know David Goggin out there, but there are other people who are like David Goggin as well. And with my friend, they were talking about, they were watching something, they were like, wow, this is the standard. So it's kind of like the standard of what it takes to be well, the standard of what it takes to be wealthy. It's like we can say, and I'm including myself, and I'm changing some of those things. There's this certain thing like when it comes to wealthy, and I'm not talking about the people who don't do things or who's just really outright greedy. But for every person, if you look at yourself, every decision that you make is not going to be in alignment or coincide, and it's not going to always be pleasant for every person in your circle. You don't even agree with decisions that are being made where people who are in your circle, and that is okay. That is okay. All right. And so, in talking about the standard, let's say, for instance, let's start off with being healthy. Let's say, generally, you know, to be healthy, it is said you need to do aerobics exercise 3 to 5 days out of a week. And when it comes to strength training, about, let's say, 3 days a week. If that is the standard, are you living up to it? And again, when I'm saying that, I'm saying that to myself. I'm not leaving myself out. There are some days I'm doing really good, and other days I need to catch up. My whole point is life has, I love the way that Shara Summers says it. Life is lifing. I usually say, the way that life unfolds, life happens. But just meaning that I have come to a realization, and it's this state of happiness, and this circling around back to being, the standard as well. Things are always happening in life. And I really get it now where when they say really embrace the good times. And I think that we be trying to avoid things from happening instead of just living in the things, meaning that there's more energy going towards, let me make sure that I do these 10 things to make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, I'm not saying that that is not true, but not to be so into that where you're not living, where you're not present. So going back to the standard, again, we talk about, in being well, that having time to sit with yourself. Let's say when it comes to meditation, whether it's 5, 10, 15, but of course, the more that you do it, meaning the more time that you put into it, like a 15, 20-minute meditation will be more beneficial for you than a 5 minute. But if five is all you have at that time, that's okay too. If that is in your practice at this particular time. But the thing is that when we're not challenging ourselves, when we're not going after the to really be the standard, meaning like in order for it to really make changes, it takes 15 to 20 minutes. Just like with restorative, I'm about to say training, restorative yoga, in order for restorative yoga to really be effective and to take that part of your body and your nervous system to that other level, I'll put it like this, there's some different schools of thought of how long it should be, but I'm going to go with Dr. Gail, Dr. Gail Parker, and she's one of the experts when it comes to restorative yoga, especially restorative yoga and trauma, in that 15 to 20 minutes, especially if you can be in there for 20 minutes, is, I would say, the standard. And so even when it comes to um, cardio, generally 15 to 20 minutes, most people would say. But then there's a personal trainer who says 20, I mean, I'm about to say 22 minutes of intense cardio. And I get that. And I would say that's true too. And so it's almost like, do you work it up or you just dive in? And that's another school of thought when it comes to talking about the standard. Again, when it comes to the standard, are you really willing to put in the work so you can be healthy? And one thing I can say, is it going to prevent every single thing that may be out there that could ever happen to a person? No. But one thing I will say is hopefully it will help you with your mindset, and it helps the body to go into, the repairing role that can definitely help you. And so, are you living? Are you being the standard? And I'm going to say, we want to think that it's going to be easy, and we take that ease and all of that, but it still takes work. It still takes work. And it's kind of like, which side of the fence do you want to be on? The work of being well or the work of trying to recover from something that we were probably avoiding anyway? So, again, when it comes to the standard, are you really willing to do the work that it takes to be healthy and well in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, in your soul? It takes work, it takes dedication. I'm definitely discovering this when it comes to being an entrepreneur. Now let's take the wealthy side. People say this and that about, wealth of people and businesses, but one thing I'm going to say, until you're on the other side, we really cannot say much. Now, I will say there are some individuals who are just greedy. I'm not talking about that. And then there are aspects of things that may look like individuals or the business is being greedy. But when you really think about it, at the end of the day, when it comes to ourselves, we are working for money so that we can, one, have a place to stay, have electricity, have food, and then so that we can have some pleasure as well. And so everyone is doing that. It's just that our perception about it is a little different. So keep that in mind too, because it really does take a different mindset to become wealthy. So, in saying that, are you willing to do the things that needs to be done in order to be wealthy, in order to make six figures? Now, there's different ways of making six figures, meaning sometimes some people can have a 9 to 5 job that may pay them that. But again, even with that 9 to 5 job, it doesn't, I want to say it doesn't come easy. There's some type of studying, whether you went to school or not, but it was something that had to be studied, something that had to be learned, because majority of the time, even with the natural skills and abilities that you have with your gifts, they will get you but so far. I'll put it like this: it can open the door, but it may not keep the door open if you're not investing in yourself, constantly learning, constantly perfecting, as they say, your craft. I definitely see where that is coming into play. So, in saying that, sometimes you may hear people say, are you ready to pay the price? Because for those of us who have not made 6 millions, let alone, I'm saying 6 million, I meant to say six figures, let alone $6 million, we don't have the right to tell somebody what they can and cannot do with their money, and they shouldn't be, doing this or asking people for money. We don't even know if they already donated money for something. But in saying all of that, are you ready and willing to do the things to get you to six figures, to get you to 6 million, to get you to 6 billions? Do you really know what that takes? And you're like, Sharon, what does this have to do with self care? It has everything to do with self care. Because one thing that I discovered on my journey as an entrepreneur is that I really believe if we all have an entrepreneur mindset, hey, we all would be in a better state of mind and also financially better too, because we'll be able to have those conversations that people call, quote unquote, hard conversations, uncomfortable conversations, hard conversations. We'll be able to have them without, um, like feeling guilty or allowing the emotions to run you, because we cannot do that. And not to say that your feelings not going to hurt. That's part of that is being human, but not to allow those moments to pretty much be making decisions for you. And so again, when it comes to being the standard, are you a standard or are you the standard? And the standard takes a lot of investment. No need of trying to sugarcoat it. And it's like, oh, well, they're really good. Like for instance, I've been really binging on David Goggin lately. And I'm like, wow, what a great, I guess you could say, and I have a friend very similar to him, and and I don't even want to say role model. And like sometimes some people think, and one thing David says is that it's not like he's superhuman. I put it like this: he has created himself to be a superhuman. So can you. We all have that capability. And so that's why I'm saying, are you the standard? Because, people's like, oh, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to exercise. But do you have time to be sick? But I don't have time to learn about these different things about insurance. But do you have time, again, to be sick? Because they go hand in hand together. Because when you don't have the money to pay for extra care or to pay for a specialist or the best doctor, in your area, or the specialist, then and we can't depend on the government either. And you're like, oh, Sharon, what does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with self care, meaning taking the time to do the important things so that it can benefit us later. We may not need it now. So this is where self-care comes into, our lives. This is when being the standard. The standard is taking the time to say, what are these things that I need to do? What are the things that I need to make sure I put in order so that myself and other people who are in my circle, whether it be family, friends, or business, need to know about me. That is important. What do I need to do? What do you need to do in order to, move things forward in your life? Because when you say you have no time, then you will have no time. I'm going to say that again. When you say you have no time, you will have no time. And so when it comes to you taking care of yourself, you are the one who holds the key to your health, to your wealth, because we cannot depend on the government. You know, later on in life, some people end up having medical conditions, let's say dementia, for instance. We never know who is going to strike. I mean, let's look at, uh, oh, I was about to say the wrong name, Bruce Willis, for instance. Granted, he has given, over half of his life of entertaining us. And yes, he has the means in order for him and his family, let's say, to take care of him. And I hope, that that he's have already put things in place and things of that sort. But my point of mentioning him is that anything can happen to anybody. And for a lot of people, we don't have things set up. And so this is where self-care. So the standard is doing the things that needs to be done so that things can be set up. Doing the things that needs to be done, meaning, because recently, pretty much about the past 2 weeks, when I started thinking about this more, I said, well, I'm into all this self-care and advocating it. Am I doing everything that I need to do? Am I really in every aspect of my life? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And like, where I know where my strengths are, but where am I not so strong? That's the standard, is doing the things you don't want to do anyway. Getting up early in the morning anyway. Like when it comes to doing push-ups for my upper body strength, I put it like this, it has never been the strongest as compared, when I do exercise. And so, and especially in doing, I'm about to say sit-ups, especially in doing push-ups, not my favorite thing to do. So what did I started doing lately? I'm started doing more push-ups. I'm started off with 10 and I'm up to 11. But the main thing is to be able to do them with a little bit more comfort and not struggle. I've always struggled when doing sit-ups, even doing what I call my aerobics days. Anybody who's been following me for a while, I hadn't talked about my aerobics days lately. I probably do it again in the future. But my point in saying all of this is the standard is doing the things you don't want to do. The standard is, let's say, going back to exercise, let's say, when it comes to aerobics, I'm saying aerobics, cardio, when it comes to cardio, what are you doing to, have your heartbeat go up? And again, it doesn't, sometimes you may not even need to move physically, but it's the best thing to do that. But in saying that, there are really lots of good breath work out there that will really have the same effect as if you have ran, And so find out what those things is. But one thing I will say, do not get out of moving. Okay, running is not your thing. Walk. If walking is not your thing, dance. And if physical movement is not in your practice, meaning that someone may be paralyzed or something, I would say rehearsal Rehearse in your mind, practice in your mind, moving in your mind. That is almost one of those things. There are some people who've really been really good at explaining that, but the only thing I can say is that even though you may not understand it, do it anyway, because the thing that you're able to do in your mind will manifest itself. Now, does that mean that somebody will be able to walk? I'm not going to say they're not going to be able to, okay? I'm not claiming that they can, but there's too many stories out there. There's too many things out there that have said that people have had, okay? So, again, in saying all of this, when it comes to the standard, like when you hear the standard, what does that mean to you? And then do you want to be a standard? Just like everyone else. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or do you want to be the standard? And remember, to be the standard, doing things when you don't feel like doing it, do them anyway. Repeat, 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 repeat. Rehearse, 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 rehearse. Practice, 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 practice. In whatever those things are. Again, when I say this, I'm not just talking about practicing things in your craft, practicing you getting in front of the mirror, telling yourself wonderful things, getting in front of the mirror, telling your things who you are, getting in front of the mirror or in front of Zooms, especially someplace where you can see yourself of what you want. One of my friends reminded me of this. It was like, yo, yeah, Sharon, make sure that you are, again, having people in your circle who can help cheerlead you along the way, and not for you to always be the cheerleader. Because if you're always the cheerleader and if you're not cheering yourself, then that is not self care. That is not pouring into yourself. The standard is for you to cheerlead yourself. You see? You see where this is going? Because in order for you to be healthy and wealthy, it's the things that you do today that will pay off tomorrow. The payoff is for tomorrow. Even though we may want to get paid today, but that's not always the case. That is not always the case. And so, in saying all of that, our, so let's say, sponsor today is Self Care U Academy, which produces Rest, Rejuvenate, and Recover ebook and an upcoming course is coming really soon. And with Rest, Rejuvenate, and Recover, you learn different ways of how you can be well. You learn how to rest. You learn how to rejuvenate yourself, and you learn how to recover. And these are brought about with different practices such as deep breathing, such as movement, such as sitting in silence. And it may not be all sitting in silence, such as music, such as just so many different things that it has where you can be well. So make sure you go to the website www.herfirmholisticnetwork.net to order your ebook today. And so, getting back to the standard. So, are you going to be a standard or the standard? And being the standard requires a lot. And there may be times you may be tired, but I would say be tired but not exhausted. So it's almost like that fine line of not doing too much, but make sure you do enough so you can continue that momentum, because it's so easy to get off track. So again, if the standard is doing 100 sit-ups, are you willing to do that? Strive to it. Are you willing to do? Because this is what the standard is, to be, you know, um, a six-figure earner, especially a millionaire. It takes work. If anybody tell you that it doesn't, then they didn't do it or it was given to them. But it even takes work to maintain it as well. but the payoff, as long as you continue to do the inner work, is awesome, is phenomenal. And so, what are you creating? Again, you can create your own standard, but just know that it really does take work, because I don't want to make it sound like that it's so easy, because I'm learning so much about myself, about what standards do I have? Do I need to negotiate my own standards, meaning to level up even more so? And so, again, what is the standard? And what standard are you living when it comes to being healthy? And when you're saying that there's not enough time, do you have time to be sick? Do you have time to not have the money for something? Because one thing that I've learned, being, financial comfortable, when things occur, it's not always the best thing, because you end up still not having the money. So what can you do in order to create paths where you're more financially abundant? We all have it, because I'm on the road to six figures. What about you?